So we're going to try and keep this as on schedule as possible. We're at the door at 8:30, unlike last month. We've got Santa Monica Police here to give some updates on activity in the community and chat about a couple things. And then we've got City Manager David White here in person to chat with us all, followed by Council Member Jesse Zwick, and then we'll get into the board agenda. So I guess for the first time in 3 years, we get to use the gavel to call a meeting to order. And I'm going to hand the floor over to Halima, and I believe we've got officers Navarro and Alpert.
Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be able to be part of this, even if I'm virtual, but I know this has been a long time coming, so I'm excited that you guys can all be there as well. So today we did have a
one question, Halima. If you all on Zoom can project as much as possible, we have some volume limitations.
Okay. So we do have a special presentation today that was set up last month as well. So we have a presentation from our motor officer. We actually have, I believe, Officer or Sergeant Kruger might be coming on, or I'm not sure he's already on. And then Officer Alpert, they're going to be talking a little bit about some of the traffic issues that I know that OPA has had questions about. And so they want to give a quick little presentation for you and then open it up for questions. So I want to make sure that they have their time. So I'll hand it over to them, and then we can come back for any additional questions that you may have. So Officer Alpert, I'll give it over to you.
Hey everyone, nice to see some familiar faces. Before the start of the meeting, I saw people walking around that are part of our Citizen Academy, some people that I've seen at the City Council meeting, so it's great to see all of you. As you know, I'm a neighborhood resource officer, but the beauty of Santa Monica Police Department is we have a lot of collateral assignments, which allows me the ability to be a motor officer part-time when I'm not doing my neighborhood resource full-time position. Part of my job as a collateral motor officer is conducting motor officer patrol-like functions, especially those that are part of an OTS grant, and that's the California Office of Traffic Safety. The Santa Monica Police Department and law enforcement agencies around California apply for grants that focus on traffic safety. And then depending on which grants we receive money for, we focus on certain areas and certain violations or driving habits and safety issues to better improve the drivers of Santa Monica and those visiting too. Just a couple weeks ago, I was certified on LiDAR, which is the laser device that maybe some of you were a victim of, and hopefully we're educated on how speeding is bad and it's very dangerous to those on the road, as well as the roads here in Santa Monica that are filled with bicyclists and pedestrians. So I wanted to jump into some statistics. I'm also joined by our motor officer sergeant, as well as the traffic division sergeant, Sergeant Kruger, who's online as well. If you have any hard-hitting questions, he can answer those as well. So for last year, 2022 to 2023, we had a total of 1,256 traffic collisions. Of those collisions, 7 consisted of fatal collisions, 501 were injury collisions, and 644 had traffic injury victims. So not severe injuries, but ones that complained of pain. The reason why some of these traffic collisions occur is based off of what the parties say at the time of the accident, as well as the officer's ability to investigate the scene of an accident, as well as that goes then to the traffic office for a traffic investigator to investigate the accident. So for those 1,256 collisions, 208 of them were due to an improper turning movement. 152 were due to an unsafe speed. 131 were due to an auto right-of-way violation. 101 were unknown. Those are the he said, she said. 90 were driving under the influence. 73 were for traffic signal and sign violations. And then from there, it sort of dwindles off into unsafe starting or backing, an improper driving movement, a pedestrian violation, and then 245 were not stated. And those are pretty much late unreported crashes where we receive the report maybe a day later, the morning after, a couple days later, maybe their insurance tells them they need a police report. And so then they file a police report and the cause is not stated. Some things to do when you're involved in a traffic accident is if you have any sort of pain or you feel an injury, immediately call 911. That way fire can get there to assist you as well as the police department. Some things that people don't know is that when a traffic accident or a collision happens on private property, typically that's out of the hands of the police department and a report does not get issued because it's on private property. But you can still call the police. If you don't have any pain or injuries, you can dial the non-emergency line and the police will still show up to facilitate an exchange of information. So by law, when you are involved in a traffic accident or collision with another party, as California drivers, as well as anybody who has a license in any state, they need to abide by the California laws. And that is an exchange of information between two parties involved in a crash. So you can call the police and we'll help facilitate an exchange of information. I also wanted to talk about the crashes where we see them mostly occurring, and that is in the nighttime. More people are leaving work, they're trying to rush home, they're maybe leaving a happy hour, they have a couple of drinks or they go to dinner, they're tired from a long day, maybe they have some alcohol. So we tend to see more of those collisions happening at night, specifically between the hours highest 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. So of the 7 fatal collisions that we had last year, 3 of them, almost 50%, occurred between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. 52 were injuries that occurred between those hours. And so we try to do a lot of the DUI events like checkpoints and know your limit events in the evening hours when people may be drinking. I also wanted to talk about some new laws that maybe some of you already know, but the jaywalking law is no more in California. Pedestrians now have a clear right of way to walk wherever they want outside of a crosswalk, but they still have to take into account the cars. They cannot walk in the roadway when there is a danger to other vehicles on the roadway. But it does make it harder for police officers to be out there and stop people and educate them for jaywalking or walking outside of a crosswalk. If there are no vehicles around, we can't even detain them and tell them what they're doing is dangerous, and we advise against it. There's no more citations for that. And that stems from AB 2147. There's also a new law around catalytic converters, making it harder on people reselling catalytic converters. Doesn't really focus on safety, but I just want to let you know because it's vehicle related. One for safety is a vehicular manslaughter from SB 1472, which expands the criteria for gross negligence as it relates to vehicular manslaughter and vehicles traveling over 100 miles per hour, as well as vehicles participating in sideshow events. Sideshow events are when people block off intersections and they do donuts. And it's essentially a street racing scene. Maybe you've seen it on the news. We haven't had one happen in Santa Monica in a while, knock on wood. So it's good to see that law on the books now. That's pretty much it for me. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer some or have Sergeant Kruger answer anything, but I want to be respectful of our other speakers as well. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. I think we have a couple questions. John, you have your hand up, and Tim.
So is there a statistical correlation between speed and accidents? Especially my gut says between 9 and 3, people are going faster, so they're banging into each other. Is there any data to back that up?
Yeah, so of the 1,256 collisions, 152 were due to unsafe speed. That's 12.1%. As for time, I don't have an exact time as it relates to speed.
All right. And the other question is it possible for us to see a visualization of this data on a map? Where the accidents happen with some coding on time and.
I believe it's a little difficult right now because we're transitioning from a new CAD system. I think many of you have used the crime mapping website and have seen that kind of fall off last year. Because we're transitioning, I'm unaware of something that you can visually see online at this time, but maybe Sergeant Kruger can add to that.
Good evening, everybody. Unfortunately, yes, we are in the middle of transitioning and we do not have a new forward-facing portal for that data. We're hoping to have that coming soon, but we have not been given a timeline for it.
Understood. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Tim.
It's okay, Frank. It's a joke. Sir, officer, I have hundreds of questions I could ask, but boiling it down to the most pressing one, although this gentleman's was excellent. What are we going to do about what to me is an enhanced noise level, especially in Ocean Park, but probably throughout the system, the city, where when bars let out or any other time, nearly for a while there until about a week ago, maybe something was done, but for a while there, every motorcycle and many cars had extremely loud exhaust levels, which were not certainly put there by the manufacturer and probably are against the law if you put a noise meter up there. What are we going to do about that? Thank you.
Before you answer, I actually just want to jump in and say I've been in contact with Halima about next month having a little bit of a informational and Q&A on what numbers to call and when for various problems, noise being one of them. What's the best numbers to be reporting if there's someone that looks dangerous or someone, a person experiencing homelessness that you're concerned about. I feel a lot of us don't know when to call 911, when to call 311, when to call other numbers. And I think we're hoping to have an informational next month around all of that.
Okay, thank you very much.
I don't know if there's anything you want to answer really quickly, though, directly to Tony's question. I know we're running over, so.
Okay, well, I'll just add a small clause to that question. Most of this stuff I notice when I'm asleep or close to going to bed, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes as late as that, and extremely, extremely loud, probably because there's no other noise around to compare it to. I'm so loud that I can hear the waves from the ocean. But I mean, when they go up a hill, that is a great place for them to have an excuse to rev whatever kind of engine they have. And it's extremely distressing. In fact, sometimes it blocks out the volume from my TV and radio. End of question.
Thank you. I don't know, officer, I don't know if there's a response right now or if we want to chat about
Yeah,
next week and then Jerry.
I would say I'm gonna put my email in the chat, and it sounds like this is a recurring issue specific to your area. And if anybody else is experiencing this, please email me. That way we can have some kind of directed enforcement and we can go out there and try and see what issues as it relates to loud muffler noise, or if they have some other catalytic converter issues that's causing this noise, or even if it's loud music emanating from a vehicle, that's also a vehicle code section. So I'll put my email up there. I live in downtown Santa Monica, so I understand what you're saying. The alleyways make it super loud. And I sleep with a white noise machine. And even then, I sometimes hear things. So
Thanks, Sharon. I'll make sure person attendees get access, get communicated.
Very
We're way over. I'm sorry. Jerry, you get the last question.
Right, thank you very, very much. Not really a fan of legalizing jaywalking because I think every person will say, I thought it was safe when I ran out and crossed the street in the middle. But what I'm wondering is, I know cars are required to stop at stop signs and red lights, not have discretion, and at a crosswalk. But if someone's jaywalking, is an automobile required to stop and let the jaywalker pass? It seems like a difficult, precarious situation we're getting into with that law, and I just would like to know.
yes, the vehicle must yield to a pedestrian or any obstacle in the roadway. That's for your safety as well as the safety of others on the road.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, officers, for taking time to join us tonight. We'll follow up on the open questions we have and talk to you soon. Thank you for everything you're doing and for the time and dedication to the community.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Next, I want to introduce someone that we're probably all pretty familiar with, City Manager David White, who's here to chat with us, give us some of his thoughts on priorities and answer any questions we have. Thank you.
Well, I want to start with noise camera.
We looked into it. They're not, I don't think we quite figured out how to get there yet.
And if you want to stand there, I'm going to turn this over.
Sure.
Oh, boy.
No, Dave was asked about that, was turned down by someone. I don't know what.
We know, we didn't turn her down.
Noise cameras.
We didn't turn her down. All right, well,
Not going to be the most flattering angle, but it is what it is.
I don't have any flattering angles, so that's okay. I like this tree here that actually provides a good buffer. All right, well, I see some familiar faces. For those who I'm not familiar with, I'm David White. I'm city manager here. I've been with the city for about 16, 17 months, something like that. So still definitely getting myself immersed in the universe. I'll keep this to the point and direct, certainly so we have time for questions. I want to start off with some enthusiasm and joy that I have. So we spent all day with the city council on Saturday at a workshop, and we focused on a lot of different things. So one of the things that we focused on was setting council priorities. And that's really, really important for me as the city manager and our organization to really help define how we're going to think about how we move forward, how we invest resources. And I'm really excited about the priorities that they adopted. So first and foremost, they affirmed 3 priorities that we've had on the books for the past couple of years. So that has to do with addressing homelessness, focusing on a clean and safe Santa Monica, and then getting behind and supporting our economic recovery. And they also broadened our priorities too. And I think that it well reflects where we are as a community, where we are as an organization. And so the first priority that they newly adopted was around racial justice, equity, and social diversity. And that was really important to myself because as I've been here really for the past 16 months, I've heard very clearly from the community, I've heard very clearly from the council, that this is a body of work. This is an area of focus and emphasis. And it's really great that they put this on the top of the page, and it's a priority for us as an organization. And then the last one, which I think is definitely going to resonate with, I know some people here, hopefully all, is they brought back the priority around sustainability. And this is an area where we as Santa Monica as a community are distinguished as a leader, I think not only within the region, within the state, but I can definitely say within the world. And so I'm really excited that they really put the spotlight back on all the great body of work that we're doing in this domain. So that was the first part of it. The second part of it, which I think I want to touch on is, I think one of the questions that was asked is, where are some of the priority focus areas that I'll be thinking about over the course of the next year and 2 years as we go through the budget cycle. So first and foremost, council allocated a tremendous amount of resources around Measure CS, which was an increase in the transient occupancy tax by 1%. And they gave us support to invest those resources in our police department and public safety, in a number of different initiatives that surround and pertain to addressing homelessness. And we could talk more about that if there's interest for sure. And then also to enhance our enforcement around home sharing. So that's been an area where we've been doing very manually. This is going to allow us to broaden our approach and be more effective and efficient in that regard. The other part of the day where they spent time on was taking a pivot. So historically, the community, the organization has done a really good job of investing resources that pay down our pension debt. And we've done tremendous work in that regard. In 2020, the council took a break from that policy in order to address the impacts of COVID. What we agreed, what council gave us direction on Saturday was to take a breather from that policy again and to use that resource to invest in the community. And that investment is going to be fairly wide ranging in terms of where we're looking to invest those resources. So we'll be looking at supporting youth programs. We'll be looking at additional library restorations. We'll be looking at augmenting staff in both planning and economic development to support those vital functions that keep things moving forward. And we'll also be looking to invest resources, both Councilmember Terosis and Mayor Pro Tem Negrete in the council supported an item on the agenda a couple of meetings ago to invest resources in a tenant improvement fund small business assistance program. So we're going to put some resources behind that as well to be able to bring that initiative to life. So I'm really excited about the priorities the council adopted. I'm really excited about the leadership the council brought forward in investing resources. All of this, right? There's the very pragmatic side about what I do as well, was tempered with some sober reality about who we are today as an organization. And that's a message that I feel compelled to deliver and bring forward. So one was we spent a lot of time talking about our organization. So as many of you know, right, you lived through this in 2020 because of COVID, we had to significantly contract as an organization. And you're seeing that day in and day out with service levels that aren't what they used to be. We continue to be operating in a very constrained environment. We lost about 400 positions, about 24% of our general fund budget staffing. We brought back some staff for sure, but only about 88% of those levels. Our capital improvement program, where we used to invest very heavily in addressing deferred maintenance needs of the community and investing in new projects, continues to be severely underfunded. So whereas we used to invest, I would say probably about $25 million per year in capital improvements, we're down to about 13 million. And not all of that goes directly into infrastructure projects, because some of it is reserved for debt service, some of it is reserved for addressing technology needs of the organization, vehicle needs of the organization as well. So we're investing a lot less in the community right now from a capital investment perspective. And then what we talked a lot about was our financial reality. So while we are recovering for sure, as an organization and as a community, the financial recovery at some level has been frankly muted, right? So a couple of reasons. Tourism has taken its time to come back to where it was. So while we're seeing rates for hotel rooms higher than they've ever been, occupancy levels continue to not be what they were. So we're recovering, but it's not quite as strong as what it used to be. And then the other issue that we're facing is we have to understand and acknowledge that we do have a very significant office presence in our community. And as folks have started to telecommute more, and that's become more part of the DNA of companies, we don't have the same kind of pedestrian traffic that we used to have pre-pandemic. So that also has been a strain on us. And then the other thing that is very real for us is we have some very significant liabilities we have to address. So one of those comes from sexual abuse from a former employee. And so in the past, the city has settled about 100 cases of sexual abuse and it has paid out about $100 million. And in today's environment, we have about another 100 claims that we're dealing with. So that's a very significant financial liability that hangs over our head that we're working through, but is definitely going to constrain our ability to deliver the kinds of services that you all are asking for and expecting. And then the two other liabilities that are very present for us. One has to do with a court case about a request for the community to go to district elections. That court case is right now waiting to be heard in the California Supreme Court. And we know if we lose that case, it could be very significant to the city. So that's something that's very pressing on our mind. And then there's some pretty wide-ranging infrastructure needs. Most pressing is we have a parking garage downtown, parking structure 1 has to be seismically retrofit. That's about a $25 million proposition. We currently do not have those resources in our venue. So there's some great things happening, and then there's some very real things that we're working to manage our way through at this moment in time. So I can stop there. I think that's a pretty good high-level overview. So we have time for question and answer, because I know you want to get out of here by 8:30 as well.
So the improvements in software that are coming, right, with the whole contract complex, how is that gonna affect people in communities? Right, is that, is it these processes for, developers in order to make things quicker, to tie pieces together? Is it gonna be leasing because they'll have more data? Is that really?
What are you referring to?
So you have kind of contracted impact. Build, upgrade servers, network applications, 6 or 7 months. Refresh the IT infrastructure.
So if I'm remembering the specific contract, is this one where we're looking to move to a virtual cloud?
Yeah, so with that comes improvements. And
Yeah,
data, reliability. So trying to figure out how that translates into what we see on the street.
Well,
If you know yet, I mean, if you
that-
don't know, that's okay.
that will not necessarily, that action in and of itself will not necessarily translate into very specific tangible benefits right away to the community. I think where there will be more tangible benefits is we are putting together some work to upgrade our permitting system that centers in our planning department and public works department. Our current permitting system is really antiquated, I guess is the best way to frame it. And so we're moving forward with that initiative, which I think will really make a difference. This will make our infrastructure more reliable by going to a more virtual in the cloud system versus having to maintain hard servers within City Hall. And it's going to allow us to have more reliability and redundancy in our system so that we can have our systems distributed in the case of, let's say, an earthquake or something like that. That will be felt more on the back end. I don't think you're going to see that on the front end.
Thank you.
I was wondering, what is the intention with the violent homeless? The ones that are flinging things, screaming and yelling, that I cross the street for? What's happening with them and what is the protocol?
So I can try to answer some of that. So certainly in terms of who to call and how to handle situations. So first, let me just take a step back. We as a community have a very, very, very robust approach and comprehensive approach to addressing homelessness. So I'll give you just a thumbnail sketch of all that we do. So within the police department, we have something called the Homeless Liaison Program Team. So those is a set of officers that are basically their focus and mission is working with folks who are experiencing homelessness. They're embedded with a mental health worker from the county, and their job is to connect folks to services, enforce the law when it's necessary, and help get people housed ultimately or connected to the right service. Part of what we asked council to support was expanding that team on Saturday so that we could have 7-day-a-week coverage, because right now they only operate about 4 days a week. We currently have 3 different outreach teams working within the community, basically focused essentially in our downtown and beach areas, because that's where the highest level of folks experiencing homelessness reside. We did ask council to expand our outreach efforts so we can have an additional team in the community working specifically east of Lincoln, because right now we're solely dependent on the acronym is LAHSA, Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, to provide outreach services in that part of the community. So we see outreach as being one strategy that we're looking to really address. If you see someone acting erratically, right now, what we recommend, right, certainly if you think they're a danger to themselves or to others, to please do call 911. One of the services that we're looking to enhance is we've engaged in very long conversations with the county about bringing forward a service that we call a therapeutic van. And how that will be staffed will consist of individuals who have lived experience, so who have lived perhaps on the streets and had a life experiencing homelessness, as well as social workers and case managers. And our hope and ideal is that when folks call 911 for individuals having some sort of mental health or behavioral health issue, that if that resource could get off the ground and be deployed, that could become a better resource to really serve those individuals rather than our police department or fire department. Our police department are incredibly well trained. To be completely honest, they have service cards that they hand out, but we would like to provide a different type of service over time. So that's the best approach that I can offer you in that regard.
There's so much development going on right now in the city, construction everywhere, and I know it's all tied into this housing crisis. And that these developers are able to build these massive apartment buildings because a certain percentage is going to go to low income.
Yes.
And years ago, I recommended that they have some sort of a monitoring system, because I've been told that these people, they take advantage of it, that no one goes in there low income, that's a big scam, just to build the buildings and make the money. And these developers are like hog wild going crazy in our city. It's getting overrun with traffic and, you know, it's just too much development for the small area. You know, we can't go west, we can only go north, south, or east, you know, and it's becoming like this whole sort of pressure cooker that's being pushed towards the ocean, and it's too much to be, and to see on top of it that they're taking advantage of the situation. I'm just wondering if there's something that you can explain that you're actually monitoring this low income percentage, because I've been told it's not happening.
So we do have folks in our, so first, let me step back and say, I can certainly appreciate in my short time here that one of the more divisive issues is around development and housing, for sure. So what I do want to acknowledge is that we are experiencing a very profound housing crisis, and we need to expand housing across the range of income levels if we're really going to get to the core need. And we're doing a fabulous job, particularly in the area of affordable housing in Santa Monica, way better than what other communities are doing. In fact, I was just at a groundbreaking on Friday for a new affordable housing project that opened on 14th Street. 100% electric, 100% affordable, LEED Platinum certified, right? Everything that Santa Monica is. And we have more affordable housing projects that we're working on. And without a doubt, the state has made very clear where they want to see housing produced, right? And so Santa Monica had to plan for the development of 9,000 units of housing. And that's really important because we are an employer. And if we're going to address the twin issues of housing and climate, right, we have to think about how we can address that issue by producing community. When it comes to inclusionary housing, certainly if we know of anyone that is providing units that are designated for individuals that are low income, we need to know about that so we can go after and enforce all of the requirements that they need to have. And we do have folks within our housing division that are responsible for monitoring below market rate housing. And so certainly where those issues reside, they do have to be brought forward to our attention so we can address them. Whether that happens to our city attorney's office in the consumer protection unit or directly to our housing division, they have obligations they have to fulfill. And so we do have to enforce that.
Thank
I
you.
heard that there's, you know, people are leaving California. How can they housing prices? People leaving the state.
Well, I think it depends where you are.
Yeah, I think it's a bigger issue we're not solving
Yes.
here tonight. I do have someone
Oh.
on the Zoom that would like to ask a question.
Okay.
Jean Paul, I think you have a question.
Yes, good evening. You'd mentioned that CS money was going to police and law enforcement. What use is this going to be made of the police department and the public safety department?
Sure. So I'll be more specific about the recommendations we made to council because they were fairly expansive. So in terms of the police department specifically, we talked about deploying resources to expand the homeless liaison program team so that they can be available from 4 days a week to 7 days a week. We talked about, so last year in January, we brought forward, at that time, there was something that was called the Peer Vending Task Force team. And they focused initially on their efforts on illegal vending on the pier to deal really with the public health and environmental aspects of that. As they've really done, I think, a great job of controlling that environment, their work has spread. So they're now working and serving our police officers in the downtown area and supporting operations there. They're much more active in patrolling the beach area and the beach bike path. And so we're looking to preserve and resource that component of the police department as well. We're also looking to, we have deployed private security in our downtown parking garages. We've expanded our work in patrolling our downtown parking garages, so we want to continue to support that initiative as well. Because our police department has vacancy and it will take time to hire up those officers, right? We cannot promise that they'll be on the streets tomorrow. We also do want to support technology investments in the police department. For those of you that have followed, our police department has been very successful in deploying something called the Drone as a First Responder program. It's really cutting edge and it's done a great job in terms of being a force multiplier. So we want to continue to provide that kind of technology service to the community to really support our police department. So when they come on scene, they have the best possible intelligence. So they're coming in with the right tools and the right skills and not just coming in unaware of what's actually happening on the streets. That's a picture of what we're looking to do. On the non-police side, like I said, we're looking to expand outreach within the city. We're looking to make investments in our shelter, SaMo shell that's on right at 5th and Olympic. We want to be able to have the ability that a portion of that facility can be open 24 hours, 7 days a week. So our first responders, police and fire can do intakes overnight. Right now, there is no place to bring people, and that's particularly important for Santa Monica with the Metro and their end of line policy where they deboard people at the end of night. It would be nice to have a place and an outlet and a valve. And then we also want to support our public works department, who has to be out on the streets addressing the impacts of homelessness. They need, we need the employees, they need the right skills, they need the right training. So we want to also support the public works department as well. That gives you a broad sketch of how we're looking to support a range of activities.
Yeah, and so I have a follow-up to that. So how much, what percentage of CS money is going to outreach and services rather than using it as fungible money for other city services such as technology, public works and that stuff? So what percentage is actually going to services and outreach for the homeless?
I would have to get back to you with specifics, but sort of thinking off the top of my head, I'm probably going to guesstimate somewhere around a minimum of 50%, but definitely likely more than that. I just don't have all the numbers in my head correctly.
Okay, and I did see on your breakdown of impacts with bargaining units, POA has a salary loss survey out there, but they didn't have any pay cuts unlike other bargaining units. And can you assure us that none of this CS money will be used for salaries for law enforcement?
No, I cannot make that assurance because it's going to go to part of this resource will go to the police department, which is going to support people, which will support their salaries. So I could not make that promise.
Thank you for your
Thank you very
question.
much.
I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Last question, I believe, Judy Abdo, you had a question?
Oh, boy.
I'm trying to make it a good one. One of the things that I thought was a positive in the enforcement that had to happen on the piers was that the fire department, the police department, and code enforcement and public health all kind of worked together to help each other, and they made their plan for how to work through all those issues together. And I'm hoping that that idea has grown as opposed to being, oh, well, we're back to normal. And I'm hoping that there are more ways that different departments can work together and help each other as they do the work in the city.
So that team will stay interdepartmental and multidisciplinary for sure. So we may be more flexible with the fire service, but it's going to continue to be integrated with public works, code enforcement, and police department, including as well as our city attorney's office. And we'll continue to work collaboratively with Department of Public Health. So that model is not changing whatsoever because it's proven to be very effective with everyone working together. Because it was never designed to be a police first approach. What the issue was that the code enforcement officers were just having a really hard time enforcing the code without the support. So it's really meant to be a code enforcement led approach. But as the vending issues become a bit more manageable for us, I would say, they're now looking at other types of enforcement, really dealing more with trying to keep the beach as safe as possible, other issues of folks experiencing homelessness, particularly in and around the pier and underneath the pier, but it's always going to be a multidisciplinary team.
Thank you. Thank you for making time for us
Sure.
tonight. Appreciate having you here. We had a bunch more questions, but unfortunately, time is what it is.
Just real quick, if I can comment on one in particular thing, 'cause I know open streets is important to you. So we are going to have an emergency ordinance going to council on April 25th to allow those types of events to occur in terms of closing down streets and stuff. So keep your eyes on that.
Thank you for that. And
welcome.
Hunter Hall back there gave a thumbs up to that.
So we're gonna ask too for, in that regards.
Yeah.
Something a little more major in order to support, World Cup and CONCACAF. So.
Well,
Put that up to you, because that's a long-term thing.
you're talking to the soccer guy, rides his bike throughout the city, so we're good. We're good. Hey,
You know,
I approve soccer playing out here, and I think everyone's gonna stay in Santa Monica and not Inglewood, so.
Thank you for making time to join. us
Oh,
tonight.
absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you for all the time and energy you're giving us.
Totally. Yes, happy to come back to.
Thank you. Last guest that we have is council member Jesse Zwick, who has been waiting patiently. I'm gonna try and move him to the Bluetooth speaker so he's more audible. I apologize in advance for any technical glitches that will happen. Council member, hopefully you can unmute yourself and say hello to everyone.
Hello, am I on the Bluetooth?
You're good to go. You're good to go. You're good to go. 1 sec.
There does seem to be a little feedback. Are we good now? All right. Hi to those of you in person and on Zoom. I'm sorry I couldn't make it in person tonight. Daylight savings has thrown a wrench in the bedtime for my young child, and he just got down. But I'm very happy to be here speaking to you all at OPA. I won't play favorites, but it might be my favorite neighborhood association. I just by way of background, for those who don't know me or did not get to know me during the campaign, again, my name is Jesse Zwick. Grew up here in the city of Santa Monica. I attended Crossroads High School, played Little League at the Olympic, at Memorial Park on Olympic, did musical theater at the Morgan Wixon on Pico, left town, hello? Left town for a while, but returned back home about a decade ago to write for film and television, but stayed active in political circles. And my introduction into local politics was through the issue of homelessness. I volunteered for many years doing homeless outreach in my prior neighborhood. And through that, really learned a lot about what we as a city and a region were doing well and what we were doing not so well in trying to stem that crisis. And it moved me to do this work more professionally for a woman named Nithya Raman, who ran and won a council seat in Los Angeles in 2020. And then for Councilmember Mike Bonin, who recently retired from being the council member in District 11 next door in Los Angeles. I moved back here to Santa Monica, where I grew up about 3 years ago, when I realized I was going to be starting a family of my own, and I wanted him to be raised in the same community with the same values and the same opportunities that I was lucky enough to enjoy. Santa Monica remains an incredible place, but it has grown much harder for young families to make a life here with the cost of living, housing, childcare. Those are things that are dear to my heart as a result, as well as, of course, as I mentioned, the homelessness and climate crisis. This is my first term on council, so I've been doing the rounds and getting to know everyone who I didn't already meet. I've been saying yes to every meeting with every group, regardless of whether you as an individual or a group supported me during the election. I'm now your council member, and I'm here to serve you. And I've really just been getting my feet wet and learning the ropes, and I'm happy to update you specifically on the budget process, which I heard City Manager David White talk about, as well as any other priorities that you want me to speak on. So I want to leave as much time as possible for questions instead of just talking at you. So I'll leave it there.
I'm going to try and jump in and out of mute so we can interact with him, but this is tech I'm figuring out on the fly. You had a question? You just hold it.
Hi, my name's Erin. So since you're so tapped into what's going on around homelessness in the community and in LA at large, I have some time on my hands right now, thanks to recent tech layoffs. And I want to get involved as a volunteer because I know it's something, one of the biggest problems facing Los Angeles right now. Is there anywhere that you recommend that I search for those volunteer opportunities?
Yeah, that's a great question. Oh, I'm going to wait for the mute.
You're good.
Okay. I can just hear myself. Okay, there we go. Yeah, my way into local politics was through volunteering in my prior neighborhood on the Northeast Los Angeles and my neighborhood of Silver Lake. But I was a part of an organization called SELA, which is all volunteer run and operates mainly still, I think, on that side of town, but an amazing organization that in many ways emulated what we were doing, has grown in the last couple of years during the pandemic on the West Side, and it's called Grassroots Neighbors. They operate in Westchester and throughout, I think, a lot of West LA. They were instrumental in some of the outreach performed in the encampment to home projects that we were done at Venice Beach and at Westchester Park and other places, where as we were coming out of the pandemic, we were hoping to target specific locations where encampments had grown and transition people all at once into interim housing where they then could be connected to more services. And Grassroots Neighbors is a good group that I hope will start doing more in Santa Monica as well. There's unfortunately not a lot of opportunities right now for residents who want to help to get involved. And I think that's a shame, not just because it can be really helpful, but also because I think of how much it teaches you about the issue and gets you engaged in other ways. So I'm happy to sort of put that information in the chat and make it available to Sean, who can distribute it.
A shameless plug for our new, is it a committee or task force, Sean? Or task force. Nick, task force. So Nick and I recently started a task force that has met once, but that is an issue that we'd like to figure out. How do we do more as an OPA organization? So we'd love to have more interested people involved. So.
Thank you. Other questions for Councilmember Zwick? Yes, Kathy.
It's not a question. I just want to say I'm very happy that Jesse, I met you during your campaign. I'm very impressed with your understanding of the process of government. And I work with young kids as a coach, and I think it's great to have new blood, and new ideas. So I'm thrilled that you got elected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony.
What are you
Just
asking me
talking
to
to the
do?
phone.
Okay, Councilman, thank you for coming. I understand from the mouth of Gleam herself that she has been refused in one way or another to be able to make some progress on the noise abatement issue by being turned down in her request for something I'd never heard of before, technically audio cameras. Is that the way it's?
Noise cameras. Noise cameras.
Is that true? Well, I'm sure it's true. I'm just saying, can you shed some light on that issue?
Can I have a bit more context as to which noise abatement issue we're speaking of? Because I hear a lot of complaints around noise.
I guess you do. We were talking a little bit earlier, maybe you weren't tuned in, about vehicles with exhausts that are illegally high and unnecessarily deployed for reasons probably having to do with the ego of the person driving more than the safety. And at least in my position, about a block away from Ocean Park Boulevard and Main Street, I get a lot of the noise coming right through my house like a bulldozer. So I'd sure like to be able to hear my TV again.
Got it. I'm not as briefed on that specifically as perhaps Mayor Davis, but I know that as you made reference to, those modified mufflers and things of that sort are illegal, I believe, already. But it sounds like this is an enforcement issue that we need to work out, and I don't know the details around the noise cameras or why they would somehow, we would be unable to deploy them, but it's something I'd be really happy to look into. I'm sorry I don't have more details.
Jerry.
Hello, hi, Jesse. Jerry Rubin. I think the council special priorities meeting was really good yesterday. A lot of dedication there, and I think you came up with some good plans. I know tomorrow at the council meeting, you're going to be discussing the sustainability plan, which actually started in 1994. And I'm just wondering how you feel personally about that being added as a priority and some of the things that need to be addressed in that sustainability plan.
Thanks, Jerry. I mean, I'm very happy that we've added sustainability back among our top priorities as a city. I would contend that even when we dropped it, it was still something that we as a city were still pursuing, and it's sort of rooted in our DNA as a city. But it's important to state it explicitly so that staff, can draw upon that when they make decision making and budgeting and other priorities as far as what to focus on in an environment with highly limited resources. I think, look, we have a lot of things that we're doing really well as far as sustainability. We've made real progress as far as becoming water self-sufficient. We use a lot less water per capita. We use less water overall, even as our city has grown, because we're really making great gains in efficiency. And our new wastewater treatment facility is truly world-class. And while we can't yet turn that water into drinking water because the state doesn't allow it, I'm told we're capable of doing that, which is really remarkable. I think where I see gaps in our sustainability plan just has to do with our plan to get to be fully carbon neutral. If you look at their accounting of carbon emissions, you'll see that we've made real gains since 2020. But really, that's just a reflection of the fact that we had a global pandemic and we had a lot less people who were having to commute here every day. Transportation accounts for somewhere between 60 to 70% of our carbon emissions as a city. And the fact that there are over 100,000 people who generally work here on a given day who have to drive from 1 to 4 hours away is truly a huge obstacle. And I think that no one wants this sort of the status quo right now to continue, where where people just work from home and cease to sort of come to our city. So I really think we have to, if we're going to make real gains on our goals of carbon neutrality, we have to work on what they've stated, which is electrification of buildings and vehicles. But we also have to work a lot harder on allowing more people to live closer to where they work. Santa Monica is a huge job center, and unless we find ways to allow more of those employees to be able to live close by and walk and bike and take the bus to work, we're simply not going to meet those really ambitious climate goals. And this is a controversial subject, but when you talk to scientists at the IPCC, it really isn't. Good urban infill housing is climate policy. It's the #1 thing we can do as a city to become more sustainable, is to allow more people to live here so that they can live close to their jobs.
I don't see another hand up right now, but I have a question that I just wanted to throw out to you. Any best practices or tips for OPA in terms of either as an organization or members or community members of how best to engage with you, city council, city, et cetera, going forward on matters that are important to any or all of us?
Well, I'm very much looking to help every neighborhood group and organization solve problems as they arise. So I would encourage you to, reach out as early as possible to me about things so that we can work together on solutions. And similarly with an agenda item, if something comes on the agenda that you have concerns with, the earlier I can hear about it, the better I can prepare and get answers from staff and have the right questions to ask of city officials when the meeting comes up. So I'd say, be proactive, reach out to me, whether through Sean or individually, depending on whether, how official the matter is. But I'm trying my best to be responsive, but I can't read minds. And, I put items forward that I think will be helpful, but the best ones are ones that come from the community and arise from a place of need. So I would just say, reach out, and let's work together on whatever issue it is that you are dealing with as a neighborhood group. So, I just look forward to it being a two-way conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for making time for us tonight. I've been sharing Jesse's monthly newsletter in the OPA newsletter, but please subscribe. He's being, fairly sort of open and transparent about his priorities, what, last month's accomplishments, upcoming agenda. Encourage you to subscribe to it and or read it when we publish it in the newsletter. And thank you for all the time and energy you're giving the city.
Sure. Yeah, I do see a hand raised in the Zoom. And I'm not sure if it's for me or someone else, but.
Yep, I saw John Paul had put, John Paul, you have a question. You'll get the last question before we let Jesse go.
Oh, thank you. It's Catherine, Jean Paul's partner. Hi, thanks so much for being here and for your service. I had asked one of your colleagues when she kindly joined us as well recently about the plans for the airport and if she knew how much revenue would be lost once the airport closes and if the proposals being considered were being considered in light of trying to backfill that revenue, just given the financial constraints that the city has faced. I just want to ask these questions and make sure that the financial aspect to this endeavor is going to be a priority. So if you could just speak on what you know of that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, of course. So the airport for a while actually was a slight money losing endeavor until the last 5 to 10 years when the city partnered with a commercial broker to lease out a lot of the surrounding buildings for commercial use. And since that time, especially with bringing in Snap and other tech companies that have now come and use a lot of have rented out some of those spaces, the city makes somewhere, and I'm going to have to find the exact numbers, but I think the city is in the black with, in like around 10 million or 20 million, it is a money maker, but the majority of it doesn't actually relate to airport uses. That's more break even. It actually has to do with the commercial leases that we have on those on site. And there's the intention is to continue those leases past 2028 as they're non-aviation specific. So it seems like, as long as we can kind of keep those tenants and keep them happy, and there's some big questions related to that and the business park on Ocean Park Boulevard in terms of maybe looking at a larger redevelopment to keep Snap, which is actually the city's largest employer. As long as we can keep those really well-paying commercial tenants, we should be fine financially. There is a really big question, obviously, about the 227 acres, the majority of which are airport designated, and the vision for a great park, which would definitely not be revenue neutral. It would be a huge expense. The staff has looked at comparable size conversions in other places, and they've said that, on average, these seem like multi-billion-dollar, multi-decade projects. They've done fun estimates that say if we just had it as grass, it would take around $7 million a year just to mow it. So, there's real challenges with looking at making it entirely into a park, but I think that there are so many opportunities to have a huge amount of open space and a huge amount of community serving space if we're willing to get a little creative about how to fund it and how to say, maybe have it serve a couple of uses. And I think what staff will be doing is going out to the community and really soliciting broad input. Staff won't even directly be doing that. They'll be hiring a firm that specializes in this kind of work that will be doing that community engagement. And, I think what they plan to do is scenarios, frankly. They'll show you a scenario that's all park, a scenario that has other public-private partnerships, but with a lot of open space. And they'll talk both about what the vision is, but also how quickly and easily and financially feasible it is as well. So people will have that information alongside those visions. And ultimately, if there's any use proposed besides it being open space or educational or cultural, it'll have to come back for a vote of the people. So, it's going to be an interesting community process that I hope people will engage in. Everyone, not just people who live right next to the park, but people who live all around the city. And I think if we can come up with a really compelling vision, and we can get a majority of our community to support it. And I just want that to go to come to really serve the community as best it can. And my instruction to staff on this process was to do a form of community engagement that we haven't typically seen. Community engagement generally in our local government consists of having 1 or 2 meetings at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday and seeing who shows up and saying that that's the voice of the community. And I think, the truth is we have a lot of people in our community who are parents of young kids or who commute very far to work or who otherwise can't show up at that meeting, but their voices should count too. So I want it to be really mixed methods. I want there to be surveys. I want there to be focus groups. I want there to be those community meetings. But I want to really do a better job as a city and really gauging the totality of what that community is and what they would want for that space.
Thank you. And thanks again for making time for us tonight. Have a great night and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to being there in person next time.
Great. So now we get to move on to board agenda. I'm going to try and run this as tight as possible since we only have a half hour left. Kicking off business is with the committees. Going to start with executive committee. Patty has some grant updates to talk about first.
Okay, yes, I do. We have the grant that was given to us through the county with Sheila Kuehl. We received that in November. We just received the neighborhood grant of $7,000 about a week ago. And we have that also in the bank. And I told Sean this afternoon that I have filed for the, what's it called? The Economic Opportunity Grant again with the county. What I'm going to need perhaps in April is a group of people or a couple of people who would like to help me spend money. Because we have to get these items that are outlined in the grant and certain items are outlined. So if you'd like to join me in spending money for these, please let Sean know or me know. My email is pattytan@yahoo.com. And we could start this off in April. Okay, thank you. That was fast.
Yep, thank you, Patty. Thank you.
Sean, you need to unmute now.
Yeah, sorry, it's complicated. I think that's it from executive updates. Moving into communications, not much to report on the newsletter. Everyone's been getting it twice a week. Things are going well. One thing I do have, I want to throw out there for a point of discussion is sort of tied with membership and revenue and dues is been asked by some of the businesses in the neighborhood about having access to the newsletter in some way, shape, or form. And a couple of us have been brainstorming, creating sort of a new, I don't want to call it a corporate tier, but something, there is already a business membership, but saying, hey, if you're a business member or upping the price for being a business member, you get the ability to post in the newsletter either once a quarter or once a year, depending on what you are. Just want to see if there's any thoughts or concerns, positive or negative, about doing that. The thought is might be able to make enough money off of some of that we don't have to be worrying as much about chasing people $20 at a time for memberships to support events like this and 4th of July and everything else. I see Judy and Kathy both have their hands up. I'll start with Judy. I think I saw yours first.
Bring the business community and the neighborhoods together is a good thing. So I support that idea.
Cool.
I agree. I just want to mention how robust it has been in the last few issues. It's very good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'll also endorse that. Get their money.
Patty, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, as the treasurer, I think it's a great idea to have an extra tier for people who would like to be online. We do that in other nonprofits.
Awesome. Tony, you have a question or comment?
Subject, but I would just like to make sure that there is not an undue influence from the business community on issues when the organization is trying to make its mind up on it, that it would imbalance the balance.
Fair point. Thank you. Cool. Thanks, everyone. That was good feedback on that. OPA Connects. Judy, anything to talk about with respect to OPA Connects?
I think that what we're going to try and do is to have Lee there after every council meeting and to do a report as she has been doing. And that on the off Wednesdays, that we're going to invite somebody to speak. Either from the city or somewhere that somehow is connected with Ocean Park. So that's our plan. And I think that this Wednesday we have Glee because she will have a council report.
Cool. Thank you.
I don't quite understand when she would be reporting.
The Wednesday after a council meeting, pretty much.
Should that be late at night?
No. Our normal OPA Connects every Wednesday at noon.
Oh, sorry.
You're there
All
every time.
Gotcha.
Last item from communications
I think
is
that was a really good idea.
free up a little bit more of your wife's time. Robbie has started testing using Facebook and maybe Insta ads, hyper-targeted ads for community outreach. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, for tonight, we had 10,000 social impressions made. I really hadn't done much of this before, but it was $50. And I don't know if anybody first heard about the meeting from social media. No. Okay. We had a couple other folks here that I mentioned. I think we got 2 people through that effort. So it's something to play with. And then again, in the in kind of like a revenue, or thinking about how this helps the organization, the next push will be on trying to increase membership and or just getting people onto the newsletter might be like an interim step before maybe getting them signed up. So that'll be the next push. That'll be the next $50 that we spend.
Cool. Thank you. If anyone has any experience in that world, please reach out to Robbie. We could always use more help. I think that's it on communications. Jumping into member engagement. Chris.
Yeah, so member engagement, we're targeting our first event, most likely a happy hour here in Santa Monica at a local restaurant. We are looking at the end of March, so I'm going to be working with Joey and hopefully Robbie to kind of put that together, and we will get information out as soon as possible.
Cool. We're trying to bring back Heal the Bay activity as well. Looking for someone that might be interested in helping spearhead those Heal the Bay beach cleanups and or other cleanup activity. Please reach out to Chris if you have any interest in that. We already talked a little bit about sharing an open Main Street. Robbie, do you have anything to add to that, or Hunter, do you have anything to add to that while we're talking about sharing an open Main Street? Robbie?
It's right in front of you.
Oh, sorry. Well, does everyone know Hunter? You wanna? I know a lot of you. I'm not sure. I am the director of diversification, partnered with all in 2021 on our streets events. Glad that the city manager mentioned this ordinance. For those of you that don't follow wonky city politics, essentially the reason it's difficult for us to do closed street events is because technically there were some legal issues with it with the state. And so the city had to create an infrastructure with a new permitting process to allow us to do that. What's cool about it is that we sort of partnered with them this past year on it. And so moving forward, like you mentioned, this ordinance will allow any community, including Montana, Pico, and of course the DTSM, and certainly Main Street, to apply for off-the-rack permits to do closed street events, which makes it faster, cheaper, easier to do more of it space, which ultimately is our goal. So even though it took us a while, it's a win. So it's good.
One sec. Robbie had something, and John had his hand up before you.
The only thing I was gonna add is that the request was made for 4 Saturdays, right? The
4 weekends.
4 weekends, yeah. So essentially the summer months, and with the thought that we could ratchet it back if necessary to 3. But that's the request that was made starting in July.
Where's the money coming?
From you. No, just it's we're gonna raise it with sponsorship, basically. We will ask the city for some money. But Solstice in 2019, for those of you that remember that event, that was a profitable event. And so that business model works. And so we will hopefully set it up in a way that it is self-sustaining.
So we also have the ability to spend a little bit of money with a grant writer to try to find grants to do that. So if you're up for that, I know someone who will do it, probably run about $500 to try to figure out, you know, where that money comes from. So maybe 4 weekends can become 8, whatever that looks like.
I would like to talk to you about that because there is a specific grant that is available for events like this. I'm not a grant writer, and I would happily spend $500 if we feel like.
All right, we'll talk to you about that. So the other thing about Main Street is it's not closed enough. This is just my point of view. And what I would like to work towards, as I mentioned this to David White, is that we're going to have a couple major events with the Olympics, with the World Cup coming up. I would like to find a way to close Main Street for a week or 2 at a time and turn it into, volleyball alley or soccer street, whatever it is, and try to work over that time to make it a hub for these sports. I mean, you heard David White make a joke about no one's staying in Inglewood because they don't have any hotel rooms, so everyone's going to be staying up here. So I would just like to throw that out there because that's longer term, right? To be able to use Main Street, close it to become kind of an international type event or an international playground for tourists.
Love it.
During those events.
We could turn it into a soccer pitch with a goal post on Ashland.
I know you're easy.
Cool. Robbie's chairing the Main Street Task Force this year. I believe John, Judy, and myself are on it. If you're interested in joining, please connect with me or Robbie. I think we're gonna get the first meeting on the books in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome.
So thanks for the patience, Tony.
I will again make an amateur comment here, but I live right in the area where that robot on the network, on the web, tells drivers to turn into instead of taking Main Street. And that's really important for us who are already battling noise issues, smog issues, parking issues. And if you're gonna plan to keep, I'm just saying this on the top of my head superficially, you probably have an answer for me, but I'm asking you to throw it into future meetings.
It's a longer conversation.
So
that's what I'm trying to
So
say.
what we do though is that we always work to try to mitigate that, like we did that through the pilot program. I know that there's money now available. It looks like the city's gonna be able to do a much greater traffic study. So, you know, if it takes them a couple of years to pull that together, that's still 2 years before we were thinking about doing what I suggested. So we'll proactively be able to help. We don't want to, we live in the neighborhood too. We don't want to see that.
This year or something.
No, it's, well, you know, the closures on the weekends, we were already working to do that. We use teal fencing on scooters. I mean, there's all these things that we put in place. But also, you know, when we're talking about something longer term, like for the Olympics or for the World Cup, right? That is far enough out where, you know, we're gonna have new data to be able to make those types of decisions. So, like I said, we all live in the neighborhood. We don't want them running down our streets.
Thank, all right, Tony, thank you. We've got to keep going. We've got 14 minutes left for the meeting. Unless there's anything else on events, I don't think, Jeff, you have anything, you don't have anything on 4th of July yet? Great. Next month, I'm guessing we'll be talking more about that because it'll only be a couple months away.
Permits on what?
4th of July parade. I think that's it. That covers Main Street Task Force as well. Did you have your hand up for anything else? Okay. Now, or is this one of the?
Whenever you're ready for.
Okay. Well, we're going to jump into the task forces. Good. Okay. Arts, Nick.
I was gonna start with saying, I think Eaglewood's a beautiful, thriving community, and I love it. So as people talk about, people may stay there. I like it. I hope we get some of those tourist dollars also. For the arts community, or actually the Arts Committee Task Force, we are waiting. The Art of Recovery grants will start again next fall. So we're in a bit of a holding pattern with that. We are working on a few items in the meantime. One, we're waiting to hear back from Richard Orton so we can write essentially a letter of support for the PLP Memorial. In the meantime, a second time, we are going to look, rather than trying to build some art, create some art, we want to highlight existing art. So we will be looking to have speakers come to these meetings to talk about existing art, whether that's Danny Alonso in the Wales and 4th Street Underpass, or the California Heritage Museum. There's a lot of really great art here that we're going to look to highlight, so we don't forget. The other slightly more ambitious thing, I think, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong or Adam, I'm forgetting, that we may look to highlight is a bit of a resident curated analog walking tour of the things that we find artistic within our community. That will, whether it's your favorite blue house, your favorite statue, you know, whatever, we're going to come up with a theme, hopefully create something along that, potentially with Conservancy and our member. That's it, Chris. What did I forget?
Yeah, no, I think that one would be a nice event for us. So, committee.
I have no idea how easy or hard it would be, but I know during Black History Month, there was a virtual tour that was also set up where you could track it online. Maybe talk to people that were in charge of that to see if there's a way to also have it be evergreen. I don't know.
Our long-term goal is virtual tour. Our short-term goal is email us some suggestions.
Is on our list. That's with the city cultural affairs department already.
Can I put in less than 50 words? Santa Monica Conservancy already has structures like this. You might collaborate with them.
Yep, he mentioned them and Patty is on the board. Perfect. Thank you. Cool. Thank you. Jumping over to diversity, Ian.
Just unmuted myself, sorry. Well, just wanted to mention a few things. The first is we've been developing a nice relationship with Santa Monica Black Lives Association. They had an event on Saturday at the Promenade in celebration of Black History Month, which was in February. They had postponed the event. We volunteered at the event and some of us made donations to the organization and trying to build on that relationship.
Black Lives Association.
Black Lives.
Great. Thank you, Ian.
Sure.
Jumping over to Renters Task Force, Robbie and Nick.
Can I put that up there? I think our first order of business that we're going to really look to do, I should say, is get a number of, find out how many of our OPA members are renters so that we can at least say, okay, this is where we're at, and hopefully our membership will become a little more equitable, representative of our neighborhood. Our guess is that we tend to under-index, and we would like for our membership to be reflective of the neighborhood. That is I think, our first step that we are re-engaging. And so that'll be we'll have an update next month on our progress there. Hopefully that's our identified tactic. Yes.
Cool, thank you. I don't believe there's anyone live or online from the Education Task Force tonight, so nothing to add there. Real estate, we have not kicked off anything active on that task force yet, working to get people on it and scheduling meetings. Homeless, I'll go right back to Robbie and Nick.
Yeah, just that we had that first meeting. We'd love other people to get involved if they're interested. We do have resources that we're going to distribute, I think, in the newsletter that essentially help to remind everyone how to deal with a situation where you've got someone that's experiencing homelessness and you don't know what to do. So that's really the update there.
Cool. And then the other task force that I maybe want to bring up, I'm going to be looking at Kathleen on this one. She had mentioned possibly starting a neighbor-to-neighbor task force, and I'll.
Some of us, especially if you've been here a long time, we have amazing neighborhoods. We know our neighbors, people around us, where they're at, and we help one another. And I feel like, and it started when I was first came, and she told me, she said, my job is so depressing now because we have seniors who are dying of loneliness here. And we have to leave them, and I watch out for some older people in my neighborhood, and I feel like that shouldn't be that way, and there are precedents for other people have tried even with OPA to build grids where people could know their area, but I think that OPA not reinvent the wheel, but basically match all the available resources that are out there with people that need them. They knowledge around them. I have several ideas on how to do that written down that I want to make. So that's just the basic idea. I'm in a lot of worlds with young and old. I think it should be getting the kids to work with older people. And there's so many people that, we talked about that with the makerspace and the kids over at Virginia Park. The micro grants, they could do these projects. Even if it doesn't become anything, we'll be doing good. And from a selfish point of view, it's a great way to get, you have to have a benefit to join over. I never saw the benefit, to be honest with you, until now, because I have to with COVID in the meetings. And I feel like I'd like to see younger people, and I know because I work with them, that to do good, have fun, meet people, learn something, and be in a community would be very appealing. So that's the space.
Thank you. If you're interested in getting involved, please either reach out to her or reach out to me and I will get you connected. I think that's it for task forces and committees, unless I missed something. I don't see a hand up. John, sort of open floor now for the last 5-ish minutes, and then just have to approve last month's minutes.
So I will be quick. I want to start leveraging other organizations in the city to help us in Ocean Park. I think we haven't done enough of this over the last number of years. And I want to start with Crescent View Park, both lower and upper. I have written a draft letter to the Parks and Rec Commission to say, hey, we want to do something, right? The timing's right, it's dilapidated, blah, 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 right? To try to get them involved in the partnership with us to try to beautify our neighborhood. So, I'm going to try to think about ways to do this with different groups, but I hope everyone is supportive of, trying to get Parks and Rec to look at the parks.
Can you tell us where it is?
It's on Bay Street Vic now, Bay, it's where the pagoda is, it's for the thing on.
It's the beach.
It's the beach down at the bottom, yeah. Right, because it's all, the hill's broken up, the bricks are falling apart. It's got those concretes, it's ugly. And, you know, in particular, when we hosted volleyball for the Olympics, people are gonna be walking past our neighborhood to get to Venice by the thousands. And it would be nice if the first thing they saw south of the pier, other than a couple hotels, was something that looked nice.
Don't you want to talk to Richard Orton about that and his?
Well,
project?
so Richard is doing something different, right? He wants a memorial to Pacific Ocean Park, which is down at the south end, which is really easy to
You're at the
accomplish.
other end of the
Yeah,
park.
that is really easy to accomplish. The whole.
Mick, your hands up.
I think that park is awesome and really, I would say underused would be an understatement. Not used.
Right.
I would suggest that before we ask them to do things, that we do something there. I think a lot of the problems, this isn't unique just to Crescent Park. I think it's huge. I think it's across the city, things that are dilapidated, it's because we're not using them and not vice versa. I think that if we did something there, if we had an event there, it's a picnic or a mini concert, that actually is the first step. Say, hey, this is we just don't use it. It's a really, I mean, I think you're right. It's a really amazing.
So,
Bay.
actually, I live over there, we have been doing that. There have been about once a month, something official taking place.
Yeah.
Right, and you're right, it livens the place up.
Yeah.
You know, the challenge really isn't, it's not the park, it's the infrastructure of the park, right? When you look over the chain link fence, right, the concrete stairs, it's that sort of stuff. How we envision it is, I agree with you, right? Make it where people want to go and drive.
Really
people
great
there.
park.
No, I
And the
agree. It's-
pagoda's cool.
Yeah.
What's the name of the
Crescent Bay Park, upper and lower. It's got two names. You know, if you read the street scene, Mark, basically said that's been in place since about 1915. Showed pictures of the pagoda, whatever they call that thing down the block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pergola.
Pergola. Thank you.
Pergola.
Sorry.
I mean, I rehabbed a park. I rehabbed a park pretty much single-handedly at Ozone. And if you knew Ozone Park before it looks like today, you would have known that we put over $150,000 at Borderline by getting the Kiwanis to donate equipment, getting the city to donate equipment, not Parks and Rec. They're not going to be the ones who are going to do this. You have to go to the city and to ask them. And Melissa was the person I dealt with. That was years ago, but the park took 3 years to rehab. And if any of you have walked that park, you know the difference. So
Thank you, Patty.
I nominate Patty to refurbish the pagoda.
He said that on purpose.
pergola.
There was a jazz band there.
Cool.
Wow, what is that helped? There's a large crowd around that.
So,
Did she hear me?
so Patty, I 100% agree, right? The answer comes through the city.
It comes through the city. You have to go to the city to deal with it, not Parks and Rec.
And I see
They'll mow
money.
the lawns and they'll
I
plant
see-
the trees.
Yeah, and I see money coming from Edward Thomas. Right?
Okay.
'Cause it really impacts them.
Yeah.
And if they're willing to spend tens of thousands of dollars on political campaigns, I'm sure this would be much easier for them to do.
For everyone's benefit, who is Edward Thomas?
They own the Shutter, the Casa Del Mar.
I know, just.
And how
Yeah,
about the jet?
and the thing is, we had the Kiwanis, were doing the donation for us that year. And oh my gosh, the guy who's on the council now, he was the Kiwanis, the heavy set. Bill Brock was the one I had to deal with all the time. He's not easy, but you get what you want if you last.
Now you know I'm going up in Parks.
Can you set
Cool.
up can you set up a person who's an agent who can attract more kind of low scale crowd drawing things like the jazz band? I was only there for 5 or 10 minutes, but there was 100 people or more around it. for a while, and I heard they got kicked out somehow. I don't know how that happened.
So that, I mean, I hear you, Tony, we're all for that. The challenge is that's the city, that's permits, that's finding people that want to come down. I mean, it's a little more than just, showing up with a guitar. So, but we hear you, we're all for that.
Okay.
Like,
Thank you.
Actually, if it's just one person, and I know about this too, you can show up with just a guitar if you're not making a lot of noise.
I want to see Dave on Saturday.
Well, Dave has played that park on a very cloudy day, and Dave has played other parks on very cloudy days, and you don't need permits. What you do is you just tell the city you're doing it. You have to rent the park if you have a larger group that makes more noise. But sitting there and playing the guitar or a few horns, you can do that.
Cool. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, John. Unless there's any other open questions or comments.
Thank you for doing a great job.
Thank you, Tony. We're not quite done. Do we have a motion to approve the February minutes? Motion from Jeff. Is there a second from Robbie? All in favor? Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Chris with a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Patty and Jeff both second. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for our first in-person meeting in 3 years. Next month will be April 10th. Hopefully it'll be a little bit warmer. We're going to have VO scooters here for that one, and they're going to be sponsoring that one. And we're still working on guests. Have a great night, all.
Thank you.